Really excited to be here. Thank you. I think this is going to be a fun conversation. The topic that we're starting with is in-housing, revolutionizing media strategies from within. There's a lot in there. Let's start with just the topic of in-housing. So,
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
We're going to play a little sizzle about American Eagle first.
Let's do that.
Can we do it?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I just don't want to forget, because the team worked so hard on it, that we show the sizzle. So just a little bit about Eagle so you guys can familiarize yourself with the brand.
They're just the type of friends that are usually down for everything and anything.
I trust them. I don't know. I like to have people in my life that I trust.
You can just feel the love that we have for each other, and that's a really magical thing.
That's pretty awesome. 3 billion? That's a lot of genes.
It's a lot of genes. We had somebody once do the math. I don't remember the number, but it's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. 17 million loyal fans, global. That's a lot there. So we just talked about the topic of in-housing. Number one in women's of all ages. You're covering like a really broad spectrum of consumers that you have to be able to reach. So when you think about that topic of something like in-housing, I have to imagine you've got some pretty big remits, one with all of the things that you have to do and budgets. That's a lot to take on. So in this topic of in-housing and revolutionizing media, is that something that, is this like an all or nothing play, or how do you think about that? How do you think about what components make sense to do and not do, and how you partner with agencies and other data providers and publishers and the whole ecosystem?
I think that it's an evolving concept. I've been at AE for 5 years. And over that period of time, obviously my scope has changed and the players have changed, right? We know that, team members are always evolving. And I think when you think about in-housing versus outsourcing, you have to think about what you have in your house first, right? And how do you build a team? And then what are the things that you need to complement them? So right now, if I look at my team and the strengths that we have, my team, and we're going to talk about this, I think, is full of the glitter ideas, all the fun shit that you saw on the screen before, right? These people can come up with an idea like you've never seen before. They will spitball. They can come up with the insight. Where we, about a year and a half ago, felt that we had a void, very honestly, was as media was getting more and more focused on data and measurement, we had the chops to understand it and to analyze it, but we didn't have the in-house expertise of data scientists, things like that. So consequently, when we went for our new media agency, which is Innovators, we wanted somebody who was heavily rooted in data. I don't need you to make me a deck with all sorts of shiny stuff. I need you to tell me what's working and where to put my next dollar. So I think it's about the complement. I don't think it's all or nothing. And I think that it's going to continue to change in terms of what you need today versus what you need tomorrow.
I think that makes a lot of sense because it's a lot for anybody to take on. I think the point that you made is a really interesting one. Where do you have that expertise and where do you don't? Where do you have those gaps? And we were just spitballing about this a minute ago of fragmentation in media, and there's always going to be spaces where you just don't have enough resources to explore, and you need people who are experts to be able to go dive into those elements.
I think it's also bandwidth. If we're being very candid, when your team is about to crack, right? We can all feel when that one more project comes on, you're like, oh, that's the one. That's the one that's going to send somebody home for the day. So I also think that sometimes you need to outsource because you need the hands-on keyboard. You need the help. You have the strategic mind so you can direct. Sometimes you just need another body. And I think that's okay too. I think the only other thing I would add is sometimes you need a very specific partner who knows something you don't. So time stood still during COVID. So I don't know how many years ago, but I think it was in 2019. We were very excited about gaming. And unfortunately, I knew nothing about gaming, and neither did my team. So luckily now I have a son who's obsessed with gaming, so I know everything about gaming. So feel free to ask me anything. But oh my gosh, we went to high school together. That's totally random. Yes, that's a random one. That was just a fun thing that never really happens, right? We needed to know about gaming. So rather than going to our media and our agency of record or our PR agency or whatever friends we had at that moment, we said, let's find somebody who is completely rooted in gaming and go to the source. And we spent hours and hours and hours, days in a conference room with these two young guys who taught us everything about gaming. And that is really another reason I think you need an agency. If they have a specialty in something that you don't understand, that's when you lean in.
That's fascinating that you do that. I could just imagine that immersion session because I try and do that for 10 minutes with my son and my mind is blown. And I feel like I'm pretty knowledgeable in the space, but just the stuff that I am seeing it's just out there. You started that segment and you mentioned a term, glitter ideas. What's a glitter idea? Because I'm not familiar with that one in all the acronyms and terms that we use in this industry.
It's formally taught at Harvard Business School.
I didn't go there.
Yeah, same. It is not taught at the University of Florida either. It really came from this idea of what are those ideas that are just so sticky and exciting that you can't wait to share them? And they're not always the ones that drive that incremental revenue, right? But they're the really shiny, fun things that you get to do and play with that I'm lucky enough and my team is lucky enough to do, given that we are a Gen Z focused brand. I think the biggest challenge with glitter, and I've said this before, is you are only as good as your last piece of glitter. And it's true, right? Because technology, innovation, our customer is changing all the time. So you have to continue to stay ahead of that curve. So a glitter idea, do you want one?
Yeah.
Okay, I have so many to choose from. Okay, I'll give a small one and then a big one. We'll start small. So Valentine's Day. When you think about brands and how they participate in Valentine's Day, I don't know if this is an interactive crowd, but what do you think of? Thank you. Love, hearts, romance, all the things. But we're a Gen Z brand, right? We are youth culture. We want to push the envelope on that. So what about ex-boyfriends? What about breakups? Does anyone ever remember having a Valentine's Day where you just had a breakup? I can picture sitting in my apartment on 40th and 2nd, like eating ice cream and drowning myself in Sauvignon Blanc, but it's like for another day. But that was what we went with. We said, what is a place that we can cut through and be different? So we came up with this content series that was rooted in a gene that we actually branded and named the ex-boyfriend gene. It was ripped, it was damaged. And we partner with all these different creators who had just gone through breakups to create this content of them sort of angrily, but proudly talking about their breakup in a really soft way. So imagine a girl walking through her apartment and then taking all of her boyfriend's stuff, throwing it out the window and saying, keep the jeans, ditch the boyfriend. So that's a glitter idea, right? What did it do? It engaged our customer. It was shiny. It was fun. I got a lot of DMs and all the things. But when you think big glitter ideas, I'm trying to think of the most recent. Austin, Texas. What's the biggest trend right now? It's Western. Okay. Beyonce, right, guys, the Western trend, Beyonce, the whole thing. We popped up in Austin, Texas, right outside of UT with a all denim, covered in denim. We used an agency, by the way, covered in denim coffee shop pop-up. You could interact with our denim. You got blue coffee, an American Eagle wrapped, what are those things called? Koozies? koozies, all the things. And we had lines around the corner of these kids from University of Texas dressed in their Western gear, just showing up to have Eagle coffee. And then we sent them back to the store right by UT with bounce back offers to kind of invite them to celebrate our brand. That's a glitter idea. It's shiny. Everyone loves it. It's exciting. It's good for a Monday morning meeting. Yay. That's a glitter idea.
Those are fascinating that you put them together. And I imagine some of them you have to go really quickly, which is a great time to work with a partner to bring some of these things to life. They're not necessarily massive scale. And maybe that's what makes it glitter, because it's not massive. But how do you scale? Do you have to find a whole bunch of glitter ideas to get the reach? Or is it just part of your like maybe evergreen campaigns or the things that you're trying to do all the time?
The amount of glitter is an interesting question. Yeah. I think that the idea, without us getting too silly about the glitter thing, it comes in peaks and valleys, right? Like, those moments where you need to pop and you need to really celebrate brand. And I think brand is a really important thing. So you have obviously brand media in the most traditional way, upper funnel brand media, but then you have things like activations. You have partnerships with talent. There are moments and times where I think it's important to celebrate those moments and not necessarily have that kind of immediate incremental revenue dollar hit. There's going to be a lag to it. But I think some of the best brands in the world are the brands that in good times, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it.
I love these stairs, and that was really funny. By the way, that's what teachers, I think, deal with 1,000 times a day in elementary school now,
100%.
when those just metal bottles fall on the ground constantly. So okay.
In hindsight, though, when we were in school, they just spilled water because there was no bottle.
Totally.
Yeah.
There were no cups. You just had water fountains.
Yeah. Gross. What are we talking about?
Glitter ideas. Sorry, I totally sidetracked you there.
Oh, some of the best brands, I think what makes an amazing brand is a brand who doesn't take their eye off that prize of glitter all the time. Because what happens normally, guys, when business is bad? You cut back marketing dollars, cut back brand dollars. But is that right? Don't you want your customer to constantly stay with you on the journey in good times and bad, and stay invested in their lives, be present in their lives no matter what's happening? So I don't think that there's like a magic number to it. There's budget of it. The whole budget thing definitely impacts the glitter. But I don't think there's an exact number. I think it's about what's going on in your brand, what's happening in the world, what's relevant in culture. I think that's a really critical thing, like this Western piece. You have to jump on moments of culture, guys, especially if Gen Z is your customer, because they will move on to the next.
I was just going to say, you probably can't force it either. Like, you can't say find 7 glitter ideas in Q4 as your objective. Like, right?
No, definitely not.
Okay. Thank you. You just mentioned something else that I'm going to go back to one of these that you did with Todd. You mentioned a term there, upper funnel, a second ago, and maybe this is embarrassing. Maybe you're totally fine with it. You had a really funny analogy, I think, for upper funnel and lower funnel. Do you want to share what that was?
Yes. So I think the easiest way to explain upper funnel and lower funnel media is upper funnel is vitamins, right? You get vitamins, you feel good. Lower funnel is crack. You feel really good, really fast. For like a minute, you're dancing up and down, you're making money, it's coming in, right? But you need those things to work together. Otherwise, we both knows what happened to the people who just do crack. And if you just take vitamins, you know what I mean? But it really does make sense, right? If you want to explain media and the variance between those two things and why you need them both, it's very, very logical. We've all seen the brands who totally focus on performance, right? What happens? They die very quickly, right? I mean, D2C, maybe you're an anomaly, but you're going to die very, very quickly, because are those customers the most qualified customers? Are they just coming to you for a good deal? What's that for? So you're going to get that quick cash turn, but the brand, I think, is the piece that stays with you. It's the piece that you remember. It's the pop-up in Austin, Texas that you're going to remember. I get retargeted constantly because I shop a lot and I spend a lot of time on social media. I don't remember majority of the ads that I receive because I get so many of them because again, I'm a big shopper. But if you showed me something, a giant billboard and out of home in 3D popping out of Times Square, I guarantee you I would remember that. And of course, that's a really bold example of brand. There's of course all sorts of brand. There's CTV, all the things. Much more memorable, right? You might attribute a little bit more to that touch point. So Kraken vitamins, if you ever need to explain it to somebody, feel free to borrow that.
I think it's a very good analogy, and it makes it very clear. I sold vitamins for Pfizer down the street for a very long time, so I'm familiar with, how that works. Sometimes
I'm glad you went with I sold vitamins on that one. Could have gone in a very different direction.
Yeah, I knew this was going to be fun, and we're going to go into some of those areas. I did not do that one. I'm not familiar with it, but we do sponsor Red Bull, the Red Bull F1 car, so I'm very familiar with like supercharging and injecting a little bit of energy, and I may have had a Red Bull or two down at Possible last week because I needed it. So I understand sometimes you need a little bit of both. I think it's interesting because you brought that up because I've heard a lot of people talking in forums like this that they'll make bold statements like the funnel is dead or the funnel never existed. But as you just mentioned, you have to have some upper funnel awareness building and have times where you need to drive immediate revenue. So I think it's interesting, just those what's your take on that?
It's out of context, so I'll give the person that, but I don't think it's dead. I think where I could possibly see this coming from and say, okay-ish, is I do think the days of looking at a media team or a media budget completely separate and saying, okay, for the rest of the year, we're going to put this much towards brand and this much per PM. I don't think that that's right. I think you have to look at media holistically. And in fact, that was a really big change management piece for my team, where I basically made everyone stop putting that in presentations. I don't want you to put either one of those words in presentations anymore. I just want you to put media. And the reason being is depending on who your audience is in the conversation for the meeting, they're going to want different things. So you got the guy who runs digital, right? And he's like, give me the PM, give it to me. I need some traffic, right? Like, give me that. My traffic's down. Why is PM down, Ashley? What's going on, right? Different people want different things. But if you just start talking about it as media, they don't need to worry about how your team's doing their channel planning. You worry about you. My team knows what they're doing. They know where to put each dollar. We should be talking about media. So that's where I could kind of see it. Where I disagree is there is an art form to where you put the dollar. We as a team, we have an MMM model and an MTA model that helps us choose where to put our next dollar. I also think that there is an art to it. We never take it and just do it. With that being said, what we have seen, which I would assume most of you have as well, is with MMM models, with all the data, which you can tell us about, there has been a shift to brand, right? We are all spending a lot more on brand than we were, let's say, 3 years ago. What I think is most interesting and what was eye-opening for me is when you started to understand the number of touch points, and I alluded to this earlier, that a customer has before making a purchase is so very interesting. The first time I did the exercise, it was 9 touch points on average before a purchase. 9. That's not one team. That's like every team who works for our company had a role in that. So what I mean is you woke up this morning, and if, like we all do, you scrolled all the things because we have so many things to scroll in the morning. So maybe you got an email from American Eagle. Oh, great, delete. Then you were walking here and you were bored, so you started scrolling Instagram and you saw another ad for American Eagle. Oh my gosh, and then you left here and you were so inspired by me that you went to the American Eagle store in Soho, you wanted to, and you interact with the brand. You get where I'm going. And then later, all these other things happen. And then finally, you were like in bed after a glass of wine and you got retargeted and you're like, fine, I'll just buy it, right? But 9 things happened to you today that made you make that purchase. Where I'm going with this is all of the funnel. You interacted with the entire funnel and you didn't even realize it before making a purchase. So it is certainly not dead. I just think we're thinking about it in a different way.
Sometimes I almost think, and I wish more was going to upper funnel and that it was purely because they knew it was the right thing to do for business. Sometimes I wonder how much of it has to do with data strategy right now. And sometimes it's harder to get the signal that said you did a great job. So people are like, oh, we need to do upper funnel where you don't get as good signal and it's just a way to keep the budget. But I think you're right. There's a need for all along that funnel, and the data you use and activate is different in there.
100%. And I do think I don't know if anybody else is going through this, but obviously we had the change management of doing all of this, and it's really rocky, but we're there. It's also an exercise in like trust and patience, because to the point earlier, like when you start to change that mix, you don't see the same results as quickly, and they don't actualize in the same way. So maybe I'm obviously coming from a retail background, so it's specific to retail, and omni. Like maybe you're seeing a bit of a dip in traffic, but your incremental revenue is increasing because it's highly qualified, right? I just think you need to be comfortable with those shifts and changes and clear on what your KPIs are. If your KPIs are traffic, you should be doing a different thing. You know what I mean? If it's incremental revenue, it's another piece. So I think it's about the KPI. And the last thing I'll say on that is I do think that there is a human component, as we talked about in-housing. In-housing is so important to have smart people who you can trust, of course, who are nice humans, but who are smart and can look at the data and say, I understand that's what it's telling me, but for this reason, I don't know, we got to shift it. I think that there's a seasonality shift. I think that I need to know my audience of the people who sit in, my boardroom every day. And if that traffic dips that much, I'm going to get dinged. So I need to play around with that. So I think the soft side of it can't be forgotten.
Yeah, this is clearly where that art and science comes to blend. And sometimes things just are not fully believable. Like it just doesn't make intuitive sense. And sometimes you have to go back and figure out, is that real? Is there something else going on there that you're not really tracking with?
And then we all get our testing agendas, and that's a whole nother topic for us.
That is a whole nother topic, maybe for another session. We'll stop for questions in a second. One more element, and I wanted to ask earlier, I forgot about it. Maybe it ties into this glitter. It's that a lot of times these are going to come from having like a really good insight, and insights come from knowing your customers incredibly well, and maybe more important than ever as people are focused on first party data and trying to really know them, because you can't find those if it's not tied to an insight. There was a campaign that I thought was really interesting. Do you want to just touch on really quickly, because it happens to me a lot and I need more of it. The glow up, is that right? Did I get that right?
It's glow up your guy.
Glow up your guy. Someone needs to do that for me. I would appreciate that. So talk about that one.
We're going to do like one interactive question. If you are a man in this audience, how many of you buy your own clothes? Oh, a lot of you buy your own clothes.
This is New York. I go through this all the time. Okay. Anyone who has not shopped at Walmart on a regular basis? How many people shop Walmart here regular? This is not America. Okay. No one here raised their hand, and America does all of their shopping.
Okay.
So
in my focus group of 2 in my house, neither one of the men buy their own clothes. Glow up your guy is based on the insight. It's okay. I'll just use this one. That about 70% of men's purchases in the 15 to 25-year-old range are not done by him. They are done by her. That could be mommy, that could be his best friend, that could be his sister, that could be his girlfriend, that could be any woman in his life. So Glow Up Your Guy was about creating content that featured women talking about the man in their life. Again, didn't necessarily need to be a romantic one. And we targeted that content at him, and we also targeted it at her to get some insights. And I got to tell you, the engagement and the return on that, a little bit higher than targeting you guys. Women are much more inclined to shop. So it's really all about her if you want him, is the moral of the story.
And the data. And the data and the insight. You find that insight that this is a case you have to go after, and you really capitalize on that. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to cover that one. I'm going to send you and the team my sizes because you mentioned that earlier. Feel free and glow me up. I want to figure out the Craig, like denim on denim. That's his vibe. I'm not going to go for that. So find new one. Maybe one question. Anyone have questions for Ashley?
Mentioned how has a capability to stick in your mind. And I was wondering, because out of home does that for so many brands, why do you think that such a small percentage of media budgets are out of home?
I think it's a good question. if anyone over here wants to answer, we've got some out-of-home folks here. But I think it's two reasons. I think number one, scalability. I think we are all challenged so much with scalability as online business has become our number one door in the retail world, especially. I think number two, I think CPM is really high. So I think just based on budget limitations, it's probably just those two things, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ashley. Pleasure chatting with you.